Alright, so Dr. Wayne Dyer's Sky's the Limit, 1980, in the Chapter 6, titled Trust Your Inner Signals, the last section. Organized religion, parentheses, in some cases, close parentheses. Most of us are well aware that formal or organized, quote, religions, when they demand that their members conform blindly to ethnocentric prejudices, rigid traditions, or other extensive, quote, codes, dictating how individuals should conduct their lives, when they teach people to ignore their own inner senses of morality, are strong external or authoritarian forces in our culture, sometimes catastrophically dangerous, as when they promote witch hunts, religious wars, or excessive cult loyalty. The irony of this almost universal awareness is that the most authoritarian of Catholics will be saying that all Muslims, that they are a bunch of glassy-eyed fanatics who never think for themselves. They just blindly follow the dictates of their ayatollahs, end quote. While the most authoritarian of Protestants will be saying the same thing about all Catholics. The most authoritarian of Jews will be saying the same thing about all Christians. And the most authoritarian of Muslims will be saying the same thing about everyone in the Judeo-Christian tradition. At this rate, perhaps only the Buddha can get the last laugh, parentheses, unless he is too busy crying about how externally orientated many so-called Buddhists have become, close parentheses. The point is that while you may legitimately see much external direction in other people's organized religions, quote, the more externally directed you are, the more blind you are likely to be to the external directions of your own church. As one man asked us all at a time when no religion following his teachings was yet organized, why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, brother, let me take the speck that is in your eye, when you yourself do not see the log that is in your own eye? You hypocrite, you first take out the log that is in your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take out the speck that is in your brother's eye. Luke 6:41-42. In other words, those with the biggest externally placed logs in their own eyes will be the last to recognize that fact, and also among the first to see specks in other people's eyes. They will be the first to say abortion is right or abortion is wrong, depending on what the religious leaders tell them to think, and also the first to say those people whose religions forbid or allow abortion are just like little Hitlers, blindly following their leaders. As far as religion and your own internal psychological health are concerned, forget about the speck or the log that's in anybody else's eye, and just think about your own eyes. Does religion help put you directly in touch with what your internal signals immediately recognize as your God? Does it encourage people to think for themselves, to consult their own consciences, to think freely in religious matters? Such religions and their members are fine and important parts of any culture. But when it comes to telling human beings that they must think the way that the, quote, religious authorities, quote, and quote, tell them to think, that they must do it this way because God is telling them to do so, parentheses, through the intermediaries of the church authorities, close parentheses, and essentially conveying the message that good church members are supposed to be robots with no free will, or animals, or children, who are to be punished severely if they don't do the church's bidding. Organized religion emerges as just another authoritarian bureaucracy peddling self-defeating reliance on external punishments and rewards. The more people are encouraged by their religions to become self-directed and in charge of their own behavior, to be moral and just because they feel it to be correct within themselves, the greater likelihood there is that the mission of all truly great, no-limit religious leaders will be fulfilled. Think about your own religion and ask yourself whether any truly kind and loving God would give people the illusion of having individual free will and then sit back and establish an organized religion with rules that made every important decision in life for those same people. Ask yourself whether your God, parentheses, if you believe in one, close parentheses, believes in you. Believes that you should be an independent thinker, behave in ways that are consistent with the highest morality, because your God tells you directly and personally, parentheses, through your internal signals, close parentheses, that you will have more inner peace if you do. And if your religion is a very beautiful and personal experience, if you find that you take your religion as primarily external in its teachings and orientation, Remind yourself that some of the worst injustices ever inflicted on human beings have been perpetrated in the name of religion, and that, still, your religion can be internally and personally one of the most meaningful forces in your life, as long as it enhances your appreciation and exercise of your own individual free will. And this is a summation of this whole chapter about trust your inner signals. I trust that this chapter has given you a strong idea of the extent to which individuals in our culture have come to be manipulated by external signal and reward systems, and has excited you about your own potentials for happiness and growth once you decide to explore, express, and above all, trust those inner voices and impulses that are always trying to guide you by your own lights, without censorship or repression by you or anyone else. Looking back at Diogenes telling Alexander the Great that the only thing the great conqueror could do for him was to stand out of his light, and John Gardner's recapitulation that, quote, one of the best things we can do for creative men and women is to stand out of their light, end quote. Perhaps the central message of this chapter is that, assuming we are all people of potentially limitless creativity, the best thing we can do for ourselves is to stand out of our own internal light. Look at it this way. A bunch of people have been dropped into the wilderness in the middle of the night, each with a lantern. Assume they are in no danger. There is no particular reason for them to stay together. They are just there to enjoy wandering around until morning, when they will be picked up again wherever they have roamed to. Which ones hold their own lights up in front of them and cast about for direction to explore that strike their own particular fancies? Which ones automatically fall in behind others and let their lanterns swing by their sides, so that all that their own lights show is the ground beneath them and the backs of those they are following? Which ones say, first thing we have to do is get organized. Joe has the most experience in the woods, so let's all follow him. Which one says, okay everybody, follow me, single file, up, 2, 3, 4. Which ones say, what on earth for? I feel like going the other way. And if anybody else wants to come along, let's walk abreast, spread out so we can light up more of the forest, discover more. And if any one person finds something really fascinating, he can call the rest of us to share it. In sum, which ones want to follow their own lights, and which ones want to stand in their own lights, or block their own lights with the backs of others? I leave it to you to decide which kind of person you want to be. Of course, that has always been up to you. But chances are you have never looked on that as something to be decided by you alone. Chances are that in many or most areas of your life, you have fallen into line on the assumption that the guy at the head of it knew best where everybody should go. If so, you might give thought to what a man said before the religion following his teachings got organized. Quote, you are the light of the world, nor do men light a lamp and put it under a bushel, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. Matthew 5:14-15. We all claim to love and cherish freedom, but all too often we define freedom itself externally, for instance, as what the American political system gives us. All too seldom are we engaged in lifelong pursuits of that glorious experience of personal freedom to which only our own lights can lead us. Naturally, we want to be good family members, contented lovers, concerned citizens, and engaged in meaningful work that will improve the quality of life for ourselves and everyone else. But enjoying life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in these and all other areas begins with you, with learning to trust your own internal signals. As Plato wrote, the man who makes everything that leads to happiness depend upon himself and not upon other men has adopted the very best plan for living happily. Plain and simple words a few thousand years ago, plain and simple today. Trust yourself.